He spent his last $500 on a rusted World War II submarine. Then his dog found a secret powerful men were still willing to kill for. The snow-covered marina sat silent beneath the mountains, a place forgotten by time. Ryan Walker, a homeless Navy SEAL, stood beside a rusted submarine no one else wanted. But his dog, Atlas, wouldn't leave its side. What lay hidden inside wasn't just history, it was something buried on purpose and still being watched. Comment 1 if you'd keep digging for the truth, or 0 if you'd walk away. And tell me where you're watching from. The town of Pine Hollow didn't wake up anymore. It just lingered. Morning came slowly beneath the heavy gray sky, sliding down from the jagged white peaks of the Sawtooth Mountains like a tired breath. Snow clung to rooftops that hadn't been repaired in years. Storefront windows were dark, signs faded, doors locked from the inside as if the people had simply stopped trying. At the edge of it all, where the frozen lake met a crumbling marina, a rusted pickup truck sat parked beneath a leaning streetlight that hadn't worked in years. That's where Ryan Walker lived. The truck was older than most of the buildings still standing in Pine Hollow. Its paint had peeled down to bare metal in places, the bed filled with a mix of worn blankets, a duffel bag, and a few tools that had seen better days. The windshield carried a thin crack stretching across it like a frozen scar. Inside, Ryan sat motionless. He wasn't sleeping. Not really. His eyes were open, fixed on the lake beyond the marina, an endless sheet of ice stretching out beneath the pale morning light. Every now and then, a low groan echoed from deep within the frozen water, the kind of sound that made most people uneasy. Ryan didn't react. He'd heard worse. Beside him, in the passenger seat, Atlas was already awake. The German shepherd sat upright, perfectly still, ears slightly forward, eyes scanning the horizon with quiet precision. His fur was thick and dark, dusted with a fine layer of frost from the cold air that seeped through the truck's worn seals. A faint scar ran along his front leg, old, healed, but never forgotten. He didn't move much. He didn't need to. He just watched. Ryan finally shifted, reaching up to rub his face with both hands. His beard had grown uneven, streaked with gray despite his age. 38, but he carried himself like someone much older, someone who had already seen too much to expect anything new from the world. His breath fogged the air as he exhaled slowly. "Morning," he muttered. Atlas's ears twitched slightly at the sound of his voice, but he didn't turn. He never did unless it mattered. Ryan glanced at him, a faint trace of something softer, passing through his tired eyes. "Anything out there?" No answer, of course, but Atlas's gaze remained locked on the lake. That was enough. Ryan reached down and grabbed a worn thermos from the floor, unscrewing the lid and taking a slow sip. The coffee inside was lukewarm at best, bitter and thin, but it did its job. It always did. Outside, the wind picked up, sweeping loose snow across the marina in thin, restless waves. The old wooden docks creaked faintly, their supports buried in ice. A single boat remained tied at the far end, half sunken, its hull cracked open like something that had simply given up. That's what Pine Hollow had become. A place where things came to stop trying. Ryan pushed the thermos aside and opened the truck door. The cold hit him immediately, sharp and biting, cutting through his worn jacket like it wasn't even there. He stepped out onto the frozen gravel, boots crunching softly beneath him. Atlas followed without hesitation. The dog moved with quiet control, stepping down from the truck and immediately positioning himself at Ryan's side. Not too close, not too far, just enough to be there. Always there. They walked toward the edge of the marina in silence. Ryan's eyes moved across the lake, scanning without thinking, the habit buried deep in muscle memory. Angles, distances, open space, cover. Even now, even here, his mind never stopped working like that. That was the problem. It never turned off. A sudden crack echoed across the ice, sharp, distant, but real. Ryan froze. For a split second, everything shifted. The lake disappeared. The cold faded. The marina was gone. In its place, dust, heat, the sharp sting of metal in the air, a different kind of silence, broken by something far worse than ice. His breathing changed. Faster, shallow. His hands tightened slightly, fingers curling without meaning to. Atlas moved instantly. The dog stepped in front of him, pressing firmly against Ryan's legs, grounding him, anchoring him to the present. No panic, no barking, just pressure, solid, steady. Ryan blinked hard. The lake came back. The cold returned. The crack on the ice faded into nothing more than sound. He exhaled slowly, forcing the breath out of his lungs like it weighed something. "I'm good," he said quietly. Atlas didn't move. Not yet. Ryan reached down, placing a hand on the dog's neck, fingers pressing lightly into his fur. "I'm good," he repeated. A moment passed. Then Atlas stepped back, returning to his position at Ryan's side. The wind carried the smell of old wood, frozen water, and something metallic from deeper in the marina. Ryan turned slightly, looking toward the far end, where the old storage yard sat behind a chain-link fence. There was movement there today. A truck. Not one of the local ones. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Atlas noticed it too. The dog's posture shifted almost imperceptibly, just enough for Ryan to see it. A slight lean forward, ears sharper, focus narrowing. Ryan followed his gaze. The truck sat near the fence, engine idling, a faint plume of exhaust rising into the cold air. No markings, no familiar faces, just there. Watching, maybe, or maybe not. Ryan looked away first. Didn't matter. Not yet. He turned back toward the truck, motioning slightly with his head. "Come on." Atlas fell in step beside him immediately. They walked back in silence, the marina creaking softly behind them, the lake stretching out ahead like an unfinished thought. Ryan climbed into the driver's seat, closing the door with a dull thud. Atlas settled in beside him, eyes still alert, still watching. Ryan started the engine. It coughed once, twice, then finally turned over. He sat there for a moment, hands resting on the wheel. Then he spoke, barely above a whisper. "Let's find something to fix." Atlas didn't look at him. He didn't need to. Because somewhere beneath the quiet, beneath the cold, beneath the surface of a town that had forgotten how to live, something was waiting. And Atlas already knew it. Something was waiting. And Atlas already knew it. Ryan didn't say it out loud, but the feeling followed him all the way out of the marina and into the narrow road that wound through Pine Hollow. Snow lined both sides like silent witnesses, untouched in places where no one had bothered to walk for days. The truck rattled as it climbed a shallow hill, engine struggling but steady. Atlas sat upright, eyes forward, but every few seconds his nose lifted slightly, testing the air. He was tracking something. Ryan noticed. He always noticed. "Yeah," he muttered under his breath, tightening his grip on the wheel. "I feel it too." At the edge of town, just past a row of boarded-up shops, a faded sign leaned crookedly against a chain-link fence. "Government surplus auction. Today." Below it, someone had scribbled the location in black marker. Ryan slowed the truck. He hadn't planned on stopping. Not really. But something about the place, the trucks he'd seen earlier, the movement near the marina, it all lined up. Atlas shifted in his seat. Not restless, not anxious. Focused. That was enough. Ryan turned the wheel and pulled into the lot. The yard had once been part of a working industrial site. You could still see it in the bones of the place. Cracked concrete, rusted cranes frozen in place, stacks of metal and equipment left behind, like relics of a time when people still built things here. Now, it was just a graveyard. Rows of discarded machinery sat half-buried in snow. Old generators, broken trailers, crates filled with tangled wires and dented panels. A handful of people wandered between them, bundled in heavy coats, their voices low, their movements slow. Most weren't buyers. They were scavengers. Ryan parked near the edge and killed the engine. For a moment, he didn't move. Then Atlas let out a quiet, almost inaudible breath, and stepped down from the truck before Ryan even opened the door. That got his attention. Atlas didn't rush ahead. He walked. Slow, controlled, head low, nose working, scanning the ground and the air at the same time. Ryan followed. The cold bit harder here, cutting through the open yard with nothing to block the wind. A man near the entrance glanced at Ryan, then looked away just as quickly. Another laughed at something across the yard, the sound echoing hollow against the metal piles. Ryan ignored them. He kept his eyes on Atlas. The dog moved past rows of scrap without hesitation. He didn't stop at the generators, didn't react to the stacks of old steel beams, didn't even slow down near a pile of military crates that had clearly caught everyone else's interest. He was looking for something specific. Ryan's pulse picked up slightly. "What is it?" he murmured. Atlas didn't answer. He just kept walking. Then, suddenly, he stopped. Completely. Ryan nearly walked into him. The dog stood still, body angled toward the far end of the yard. His ears were forward now, sharp, his tail low but steady. No wag, no tension, just certainty. Ryan followed his line of sight. At first he didn't see it. Then the wind shifted. Snow lifted off the ground in a thin sweep, revealing something massive beneath it. Dark, curved, wrong. Ryan stepped closer, and then he saw it. A submarine, or what was left of one. It stretched along the far edge of the yard, resting on a set of heavy supports that had sunk unevenly into the cracked concrete. The hull was coated in rust, streaked with years of weather and neglect. The conning tower leaned slightly to one side, its edges chipped and worn. It didn't belong here. Not in a place like this. Not in the middle of the mountains. Ryan frowned. How the hell? He didn't finish the sentence. Atlas was already moving. The dog approached the submarine slowly, circling the front section first. His nose hovered just above the surface, tracing invisible lines along the steel. Then he moved along the side, pausing near the lower hull. And that's when it changed. His posture shifted. Subtle, but unmistakable. He lowered his head further, pressing his nose closer to the metal. One step forward, pause, another step. Then he stopped again, right near the midpoint of the submarine's body, his entire focus locked in. Ryan felt it. That same quiet pressure in his chest, the one he used to feel before something went wrong. He stepped closer. What is it, Atlas? The dog didn't move. He didn't bark. He just stood there, staring at the steel like it was talking to him. Ryan reached out, running his gloved hand along the hull. The surface was cold, rough with rust, but beneath that, he felt something else. A difference. A line that didn't belong. He leaned in, brushing away a thin layer of frost with his sleeve. There. A weld seam, cleaner than the rest, newer. His eyes narrowed. That's not right, he muttered. A voice behind him cut through the wind. Thing's junk. Ryan turned slightly. A man in a heavy coat stood a few feet away, hands stuffed in his pockets, watching with mild amusement. Pulled it out of some lake years back, the man went on. No engine, no value. They tried to sell it twice already. Nobody wants it. Ryan looked back at the submarine. Atlas hadn't moved. Still locked in, still certain. The man chuckled. Unless you're planning to turn it into a house or something. Ryan didn't respond. He just stared at the weld line. Then at Atlas. Then back at the submarine. Something about it didn't add up. Not the location, not the condition, not the way it had been handled, and definitely not the way Atlas was reacting. A loud voice echoed from the center of the yard. All right, folks, let's get started. The auctioneer. People began to gather, boots crunching in the snow as they moved closer. Ryan stayed where he was. He didn't care about the rest. Only this. The auction moved quickly. Small items first. Tools, scrap, equipment. Numbers called out, hands raised, deals made in seconds. Ryan barely heard any of it. Atlas finally stepped back from the hull, but only slightly, positioning himself at Ryan's side again. Still watching, still alert. Then the auctioneer's voice cut through again. Lot 47. Ryan looked up. World War II-era submarine hull. Decommissioned, non-operational, sold as scrap metal. A few people laughed. Starting at 500. Silence. No one moved. Ryan's eyes stayed on the submarine. His mind worked through it automatically. Structure, weight, transport, value. None of it made sense. But that wasn't what mattered. Atlas shifted, just slightly. Enough. Ryan raised his hand. I've got 500. The auctioneer pointed. 500. Do I hear 6? Nothing. 600? Still nothing. People glanced at Ryan, then at each other, some shaking their heads, others smirking. The wind picked up again, sweeping across the yard. Atlas didn't look away. The auctioneer hesitated for a second, then shrugged. Sold. 500 to the gentleman. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. And just like that, it was his. Ryan stood there for a moment, the sound echoing faintly in his ears. $500. Every last dollar he had. He looked at the submarine, then at Atlas. The dog met his gaze for the first time since they'd entered the yard. Calm. Certain. Ryan exhaled slowly. "All right," he said under his breath. Then he looked back at the rusted steel giant now tied to his name. "Let's see what you found." Then he looked back at the rusted steel giant now tied to his name. "Let's see what you found." The wind pushed harder across the yard as the crowd drifted away, interest already fading. To them, it was over. Another piece of scrap sold, another forgotten object passed along. But Ryan didn't move. He stood facing the submarine, boots planted in the snow, studying it like he would a structure in the field, looking for angles, weaknesses, anything that didn't belong. Atlas stepped forward first. The dog returned to the exact same spot along the lower hull, nose hovering inches from the steel. His breathing slowed, deliberate. One paw lifted slightly, then set down again with precision. Ryan watched closely. "Same spot," he muttered. Atlas circled once, tight and controlled, then stopped again, this time pressing his shoulder lightly against the hull. That was new. Ryan felt a subtle tightening in his chest. Atlas didn't improvise. He didn't guess. Everything he did had a reason. Ryan stepped closer, kneeling beside him. He brushed away more snow with his gloved hand, exposing a wider section of the metal. The weld line was clearer now. It ran horizontally across the hull, almost perfectly straight, but cleaner than anything around it. The rust hadn't taken hold the same way. It looked preserved or replaced. Ryan leaned in, running his fingers along the seam. Cold, smooth, wrong. "This wasn't part of the original build," he said quietly. Atlas didn't react. He just stayed focused. Ryan shifted his weight, scanning the length of the submarine again. From a distance, it looked like a single, continuous structure. But up close, subtle inconsistencies began to emerge. Panels that didn't align perfectly. Edges that had been ground down and resealed. Sections that carried a slightly different texture beneath the rust. Someone had worked on this, long after it had been built. Ryan stood slowly, stepping back a few feet. His eyes narrowed. "All right," he said under his breath. "Let's confirm it." By late afternoon, the yard was nearly empty. Ryan had signed the paperwork, barely listening to the instructions about removal deadlines and liability waivers. None of it mattered yet. He needed to understand what he was looking at. He returned to the truck and pulled out a small toolkit. Nothing fancy, just basic measuring tape, chalk, and a worn notebook. Tools he trusted. Atlas stayed close as Ryan approached the submarine again. "Stay with me," Ryan said. The dog didn't need the command, but he followed it anyway. Ryan started at the front of the hull, hooking the end of the tape measure and walking it back along the length of the structure. His boots left a narrow trail in the snow as he moved, counting under his breath. 10, 20, 30. The number climbed steadily. When he reached the rear, he stopped, marking the measurement in his notebook. Then he turned. Now inside. Getting into the submarine wasn't easy. The hatch at the top of the conning tower had been left partially open, frozen around the edges. Ryan climbed carefully, gripping the cold metal as he pulled himself up. Atlas waited below. Ryan looked down at him. Hold. The dog stayed perfectly still. Ryan forced the hatch open the rest of the way, metal groaning in protest. A rush of stale, trapped air escaped from within, dry, cold, carrying the faint scent of oil and something older. He dropped down inside. The darkness swallowed him for a moment, until his eyes adjusted. Then stillness. Everything inside the submarine was intact. Not clean, not untouched, but preserved. Dust coated the surfaces in a thin, even layer. Control panels sat exactly where they should. Wires hung in place. Even the narrow bunks along the walls looked undisturbed. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt paused. Ryan's jaw tightened slightly. "That's not right," he whispered. He moved carefully through the narrow corridor, boots echoing softly against the metal floor. Every step felt deliberate, measured, as if the space itself demanded it. He reached the engine compartment. This was where Atlas had reacted. Ryan crouched, pulling out the tape measure again. He hooked it against one wall and stretched it across to the other, checking width first. Then length. He wrote the numbers down. Then he compared them to what he had measured outside. He froze. For a moment, he didn't move at all. Then he checked again. Same result. Ryan exhaled slowly, his breath steady but heavier now. "That's not possible," he murmured. He stood, turning slowly in place, eyes scanning the compartment again. From the outside, the submarine should have extended another 15 feet past this point. But inside, there was nothing. Just a solid steel wall, no doorway, no visible access, no reason. Ryan stepped closer. The wall looked seamless at first glance. Same color, same wear, same rust pattern. But Ryan wasn't looking for obvious. He was looking for what didn't fit. He ran his hand along the surface. Stopped. There. A faint ridge, barely noticeable. He leaned in, brushing away dust with his sleeve. A line. Thin. Precise. Almost invisible unless you knew what to look for. A seam. His pulse picked up. "Atlas," he called quietly. A second later, he heard movement above, the soft, controlled shift of weight as the dog repositioned himself at the hatch. Ryan glanced up. "Come." Atlas dropped down into the submarine without hesitation. The moment his paws hit the floor, his focus snapped back to the same point. The wall. He moved forward, slower now, almost cautious. Then he stopped directly in front of the seam. His nose hovered inches from it. Then he pressed forward. Not hard, just enough. Ryan felt it. That same pressure in the air. That same silent certainty. Atlas lifted one paw and placed it against the wall. Then he scratched. Once, twice, not frantic, measured, controlled. Ryan swallowed. "That's it," he said quietly. He reached out, tapping the metal lightly with his knuckles. A dull, solid sound echoed back. He moved a few inches to the left, tapped again. Same result. Then he tapped directly over the seam. The sound changed, subtle but unmistakable. Hollow. Ryan's eyes sharpened instantly. He tapped again. Hollow. His heartbeat picked up. "There's space behind it," he whispered. Atlas didn't move. He just stood there, locked onto the wall like it was alive. Ryan stepped back slightly, looking at the structure differently now. Not as a wreck, not as scrap, but as something designed, something altered, something hidden. 15 feet of missing space, sealed off, protected, and somehow still intact. Ryan felt a slow, steady tension building in his chest. This wasn't random. This wasn't decay. This was intentional. Someone had taken the time to modify this submarine, to hide something inside it. And based on the condition, they had done it well. Too well. Ryan looked down at Atlas. The dog met his gaze again, calm as ever. Certain. Ryan nodded once. "All right," he said quietly. Then he looked back at the steel wall. "Now we know." The silence inside the submarine felt heavier now. Not empty. Occupied. Like something had been waiting behind that wall for a very long time. And for the first time since stepping inside, Ryan felt it too. And for the first time since stepping inside, Ryan felt it too. Not fear. Not yet. But something close to it. A pressure. The kind that didn't come from what you could see, but from what you couldn't. Ryan stepped back from the wall slowly, his eyes still fixed on the faint seam cutting across the steel. Atlas remained where he was, unmoving, his focus locked with quiet intensity. Ryan exhaled. "Not today," he said under his breath. "This wasn't something you rushed." That lesson had been carved into him long ago. He turned and made his way back toward the hatch, boots echoing softly through the narrow corridor. The silence inside the submarine followed him, stretching behind him like something unwilling to let go. Atlas hesitated for half a second, just long enough to make it clear he didn't want to leave, then followed. They climbed out into the fading light. By the time Ryan reached town, dusk had already settled in. Pine Hollow looked even smaller in the evening. Dim lights flickered behind a few windows, and the wind carried the faint smell of wood smoke through the streets. Most people had already gone inside, closing themselves off from the cold. Ryan parked outside the only place still open. A diner. The sign above the door read Marlowe's, though half the letters no longer lit up. The windows were fogged from the inside, glowing faintly against the dark. Atlas stayed close as Ryan stepped out. Inside, the warmth hit immediately. The hum of an old heater, the low murmur of a radio playing somewhere in the back, the smell of coffee and fried food, simple, steady, familiar. A few heads turned when Ryan walked in, then turned away just as quickly. He didn't take it personally. He never did. Ryan slid into a booth near the window. Atlas settled beside him, half in the aisle, half under the table, positioning himself with a clear view of both the door and Ryan. Always watching. A waitress came over, mid-50s, tired eyes, kind but cautious. "Coffee?" she asked. Ryan nodded. "Yeah." She poured without asking anything else. He wrapped his hands around the mug, letting the heat seep into his fingers. For a moment, he just sat there, staring at the surface of the coffee like it might give him an answer. It didn't. But the image of the seam, the hollow sound behind it, didn't leave him. Footsteps approached. Ryan looked up. A woman stood beside the table, bundled in a dark coat, snow still clinging to the shoulders. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. Sharp eyes. Alert, not local. Not exactly. "You're the one who bought it," she said. Not a question. Ryan studied her for a second. "Depends what you're talking about." "The submarine," she said, sliding into the seat across from him without waiting for permission. Atlas shifted slightly, his gaze locking onto her. She noticed, but didn't react. "That's a good dog," she said calmly. Ryan didn't answer. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. "My name's Claire Dawson." Ryan didn't move. She continued anyway. "I've been tracking that hull for years." That got his attention. He set the mug down slowly. "Tracking," he repeated. Claire nodded. "It showed up in a recovery report about 15 years ago, pulled out of an alpine lake about 40 miles from here. No official documentation, no follow-up. Just disappeared into storage." Ryan leaned back slightly. "And you're telling me that's normal?" Claire gave a small, humorless smile. "No," she said. "I'm telling you it's not." A beat passed. Ryan studied her carefully. "What do you want?" Claire met his gaze. "To know what you found." Ryan didn't answer right away. Atlas remained still, watching her, reading her in a way Ryan trusted more than his own instincts sometimes. Finally, Ryan spoke. "There's a section inside that doesn't line up," he said quietly. "Measurements are off. About 15 feet missing." Claire didn't look surprised. She leaned back slightly, her expression tightening just enough. "I was afraid of that," she said. Ryan's eyes narrowed. "You knew?" "I suspected," she corrected, "but I never got access to confirm it." "Access?" Ryan repeated. Claire nodded toward the window, toward the direction of the marina. That hull was sealed under federal classification after it was recovered. Anyone who tried to dig deeper got blocked. Requests denied. Files redacted. Ryan felt that slow tension return. "And now?" he asked. Claire held his gaze. "Now you own it." The words hung in the air between them. Ryan looked down at the table, then back at her. "There's more," he said. Claire waited. "There's a seam," Ryan continued. "Hidden, clean weld, doesn't match the rest of the structure." Claire exhaled slowly. "That means it was added later," she said. Ryan nodded. "That's what I figured." Silence settled between them for a moment. Then Claire spoke again. "You need to be careful," she said quietly. Ryan gave a faint, almost tired smile. "I've heard that before." "I'm serious," she said. "If that compartment was sealed after the war, then whatever's behind it wasn't meant to be found." Ryan's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted. "I don't scare easy," he said. Claire shook her head slightly. "It's not about fear," she said. It's about understanding what you're stepping into. Ryan didn't respond, because part of him already knew. That night, the temperature dropped further. The wind howled across the marina, rattling loose boards and sending sharp bursts of snow against the side of the truck. Inside, Ryan sat in the driver's seat, staring out at the silhouette of the submarine in the distance. Dark, silent, waiting. Atlas lay beside him, but not fully asleep. Never fully asleep. Ryan's breathing was steady at first. Slow, controlled. Then a sound, metal shifting. A low, hollow echo carried by the wind. Ryan's eyes snapped open. The marina disappeared. The truck disappeared. The cold vanished. In its place, heat. Dust. The sharp crack of something far away but too close at the same time. His chest tightened. Breathing changed. Faster, shallow. His hands curled instinctively, searching for something that wasn't there. Atlas moved instantly. The dog rose and pressed firmly against him, front paws braced, weight steady against Ryan's chest. Grounding. Anchoring. Ryan's breath hitched once, twice, then slowed. The world came back. The marina. The truck. The cold. Ryan leaned forward slightly, his forehead resting briefly against Atlas's. "I'm here," he whispered. Atlas didn't move. Didn't need to. Ryan closed his eyes for a second, then opened them again, and looked back out at the submarine. The shape was barely visible now through the blowing snow, but he could still see it, still feel it. This wasn't just about a hidden compartment anymore. It wasn't just about something buried behind steel. It was something else. Something older. Something that had been waiting a long time to be found. Ryan exhaled slowly, then reached for the door handle. Atlas stepped back, ready. Ryan opened the door. The wind hit him hard, but he didn't hesitate. Because whatever was inside that submarine, it wasn't done with him yet. Because whatever was inside that submarine, it wasn't done with him yet. The wind cut across the marina like a blade as Ryan stepped out of the truck, the cold biting through his jacket almost instantly. Snow whipped across the ground in thin, restless sheets, stinging his face as he moved. Atlas was already ahead of him. Not running. Never running. Just moving with purpose. The submarine stood where it had been left, its dark hull barely visible beneath the storm, rising out of the snow like something that didn't belong to this place, or this time. Ryan climbed the support frame again, gripping the cold metal as he pulled himself toward the hatch. The storm made everything harder, slippery, unpredictable. But his movements stayed controlled. Precise. Atlas followed without hesitation. Inside, the submarine was quieter than before. Too quiet. The kind of silence that pressed against your ears. Ryan dropped down into the corridor, boots hitting the steel with a muted thud. Atlas landed beside him, immediately scanning the space. Posture tight, alert. Ryan didn't speak. He didn't need to. They both knew where they were going. The engine compartment, the sealed wall, the seam. Ryan moved through the narrow passage, his flashlight cutting through the darkness in a steady beam. Dust floated in the air, disturbed by his movement, catching the light like drifting ash. Nothing had changed. At least not at first glance. The seam was still there, the steel still silent. Atlas approached it again, slower this time, more cautious. He stopped a few feet away, ears forward, body still. Then he growled, low, controlled. Ryan froze. Atlas didn't growl without reason ever. "What is it?" Ryan whispered. The dog didn't move. His eyes weren't on the wall anymore. They were angled upward. Ryan followed his gaze. The ceiling. Grated panels ran along the upper structure, designed for airflow and access. Most were coated in dust, untouched for years. But one of them shifted. Barely. A faint, almost invisible tremor. Ryan's pulse spiked instantly. He killed the flashlight. Darkness swallowed the compartment. Every sense sharpened. Then a sound. Soft. Measured. A footstep. Above them. Not loud. Not clumsy. Controlled. Professional. Ryan's body reacted before his mind caught up. He moved to the side, positioning himself against the wall, eyes fixed upward, breathing steady and silent. Atlas stepped in front of him, body low, ready. Another step, then another. The sound traveled slowly across the ceiling above them. Someone was up there, moving carefully, listening. Ryan's jaw tightened. Not local, not random. This was someone who knew how to move quietly on metal. Someone trained. The footsteps paused. For a moment, everything went completely still. Then, a faint shift of weight, the sound of someone adjusting position. Right above the sealed compartment. Ryan's heartbeat slowed. Not fear. Focus. He counted the seconds in his head. 1, 2, 3. Then, silence. No retreat. No movement. Just gone. Ryan stayed where he was for a few seconds longer, listening. Nothing. Finally, he reached up and clicked the flashlight back on. The beam cut through the darkness again, illuminating the ceiling. Dust drifted lazily through the air. But the grate, the one above them, was slightly misaligned, barely noticeable, unless you were looking for it. Ryan exhaled slowly. "They were here," he said under his breath. Atlas didn't relax. He kept watching the ceiling, muscles tight. Ryan moved quickly now, heading back toward the hatch. "Come on," he said quietly. They climbed out into the storm again. The wind had picked up even more, howling across the marina, reducing visibility to a blur of white and gray. Ryan scanned the area immediately. Tracks. There. Fresh. Boot prints in the snow, leading away from the submarine. Deep. Clean. Not covered yet. He crouched slightly, studying them. Not heavy. Balanced. Someone who knew how to move without wasting energy. Atlas stepped forward, sniffing once, then pulling back. Not tracking, not chasing, just confirming. Ryan stood slowly, eyes moving toward the far end of the marina, the same direction he'd seen the truck earlier. But now, nothing. No headlights, no engine, just the storm. "They're watching," Ryan said quietly. Atlas shifted beside him. Ryan pulled his phone from his pocket. The screen lit up in the darkness. For a second, there was nothing. Then a vibration. A message appeared. Unknown number. Ryan stared at it for a moment before opening it. The words were simple. Cold, direct. "You're standing on something that was never meant to be found." Ryan's expression didn't change, but something inside him settled. Not panic, not confusion. Clarity. He looked back at the submarine, then at the tracks disappearing into the storm, then down at Atlas. The dog met his gaze, steady as ever. Ryan nodded once. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I figured." The wind howled around them, carrying the snow across the empty marina, erasing the footprints slowly, swallowing the evidence of what had just happened. But Ryan didn't need the tracks anymore. He already knew. This wasn't just a hidden compartment. This wasn't just history. This was something active, something protected, and now something aware of him. Ryan slipped the phone back into his pocket, his hand tightening slightly as he turned toward the truck. "Let's go," he said. Atlas followed immediately. Behind them, the submarine stood silent in the storm. But it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt watched. And whatever had been hiding behind that steel for 70 years was no longer alone. And whatever had been hiding behind that steel for 70 years was no longer alone. The storm didn't let up through the night. Wind scraped across the marina, rattling loose boards and whistling through the hollow structures like something alive. Snow buried the docks inch by inch, softening edges, erasing tracks, covering everything that didn't want to be seen. By morning, Pine Hollow looked untouched, clean, quiet, like nothing had happened. Ryan knew better. He sat in the driver's seat, engine off, watching the marina through the frost-lined windshield. Atlas was awake beside him, not moving, not sleeping, just watching. Always watching. Ryan hadn't slept much. Every time his eyes closed, he heard it again. Footsteps. Measured. Controlled. Not the kind you forgot. He exhaled slowly, rubbing his hands together to bring warmth back into them. Then he reached for a folded piece of paper on the dashboard. The auction receipt. $500. His entire remaining balance. He stared at it for a moment, then folded it back up and slipped it into his jacket. No turning back. A truck passed slowly on the road behind him. Too slowly. Ryan didn't turn his head right away. He watched it in the side mirror. Dark-colored. No markings. Didn't stop. But didn't speed up either. Atlas noticed it too. The dog's ears shifted slightly, body tightening just enough to signal attention. Ryan waited until the truck disappeared around the bend. Then he spoke quietly. Not local. Atlas didn't move. He didn't need to. Ryan opened the door and stepped out into the cold. The marina was silent again. Too silent. Even the usual creak of wood and distant crack of ice seemed muted, like the world was holding its breath. Ryan walked toward the submarine. Atlas stayed close, scanning constantly now, left, right, behind. They weren't just investigating anymore. They were moving like they were being hunted. Ryan climbed the support frame again, slower this time, eyes sweeping the area with every step. Nothing. But that didn't mean anything. Inside, the submarine felt different, heavier. The air was still the same, dry, stale, but now it carried something else. Awareness. Ryan dropped into the corridor, flashlight already in hand. Atlas followed. The beam cut through the darkness again, tracing the same path as before. But Ryan didn't go straight to the engine compartment. Not yet. He moved through the space methodically, checking corners, scanning the floor, looking for anything out of place. Then he saw it. A footprint. Faint. But there, on the dust-covered floor near the control panel. Ryan crouched. The print was clean, recent, not his, not Atlas's. He reached out, hovering his hand just above it without touching. Size 11, maybe 12. Deep enough to suggest weight, but controlled. Not a stumble, not a mistake. Deliberate. Ryan's jaw tightened. They came inside, he said quietly. Atlas moved closer, sniffing once, then pulling back. No confusion, no hesitation. Confirmation. Ryan stood slowly, turning his light toward the hatch. Still open. Still accessible. He had left it that way. A mistake. Or maybe a test. Ryan exhaled through his nose, steadying himself. They wanted us to know, he murmured. Atlas's posture shifted again, more alert now, tension running through his frame like a wire pulled tight. Ryan moved toward the engine compartment. The seam was still there, untouched. But now there were marks, small, subtle. Near the lower edge of the panel, scratches, not random. Tool marks. Someone had tested it, checked it. Ryan felt something cold settle in his chest. They're not just watching, he said. They're waiting. By midday, Ryan was back in town. He didn't go to the diner this time. Instead, he headed toward the small municipal building near the center of Pine Hollow. It was one of the few places that still had a working archive room. Old records, maps, permits, not much. But sometimes, enough. Atlas stayed outside the door as Ryan stepped in. The clerk behind the counter barely looked up. Ryan didn't waste time. I need access to old marina records, he said. The clerk shrugged. Back room, help yourself. Ryan nodded once and moved past him. The archive room smelled like dust and paper. Rows of metal cabinets lined the walls. Labels faded. Drawers slightly misaligned. Ryan started searching. Marina permits. Recovery logs, transport records. Anything tied to the lake. It took time, but eventually, he found it. A thin file, marked with a date from 15 years ago. Ryan opened it carefully. Inside were a few pages, mostly blank. Redacted. Large black bars covering entire sections, but one line remained visible. Recovered vessel transferred under federal directive, Further documentation classified. Ryan stared at it, then flipped the page. Nothing. Just signatures. Official. Final. He closed the file slowly. That wasn't an accident. That was a wall. Outside, Atlas stood near the entrance, still as a statue. But his focus wasn't on the street. It was on the reflection in the window. A vehicle parked across the road. Engine running. Same dark color. Same stillness. Ryan stepped out, the door creaking softly behind him. Atlas moved instantly to his side. Ryan didn't look directly at the vehicle. He didn't need to. He could feel it. Watching. Waiting. Testing. Ryan spoke under his breath. All right. Atlas's ears twitched slightly. Ryan turned his head just enough to catch the vehicle in his peripheral vision. No movement. No reaction. But it didn't leave. Ryan exhaled slowly. Then he turned away. Let's go, he said. They walked down the street together, boots crunching against the snow, the quiet town stretching around them like nothing had changed. But everything had. Because now Ryan wasn't just a man trying to survive. He was a man being watched, measured, evaluated. And somewhere behind steel and silence, a secret waited. One that someone was willing to protect. At any cost. Ryan glanced down at Atlas. The dog met his gaze, steady as ever. And for the first time since the message, Ryan understood exactly where he stood. Not outside it, not near it, but inside it. The line had already been crossed, and there was no going back. The line had already been crossed, and there was no going back. By late afternoon, the storm returned. Clouds rolled in low over Pine Hollow, swallowing the mountain peaks until the sky felt closer than it should. Wind swept across the frozen lake in long, restless waves, carrying fine snow that whispered against every surface it touched. Ryan stood at the edge of the marina again, staring at the submarine. It looked different now. Not because it had changed, but because he had. Atlas stood beside him, steady, silent, watching the same direction. Ryan's hand tightened slightly around the handle of the cutting torch he'd pulled from the truck bed. Old. Reliable. Not designed for something like this, but enough. He glanced down at Atlas. You sure about this? The dog didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there, focused. Ryan nodded once. Yeah, he said quietly. I figured. The climb up the support frame felt heavier this time. Not physically. Something else. Expectation. Ryan pulled himself up, boots scraping against metal as he reached the hatch. The wind howled behind him, pushing against his back like it was trying to keep him out. He didn't stop. Atlas followed close behind. Inside, the submarine greeted them with the same stillness, but it didn't feel neutral anymore. It felt like a held breath. Ryan dropped into the corridor, already moving. No hesitation now, no second guessing. He headed straight for the engine compartment. Atlas moved ahead of him, faster this time, but not uncontrolled, focused, direct. They reached the sealed wall, the seam, the hidden space behind it. Atlas stopped exactly where he had before. Then he stepped closer, closer than before. He pressed his shoulder firmly against the steel, holding it there, as if trying to make contact with something on the other side. Ryan felt it again. That pressure. Stronger now. He set the torch down, pulling off his gloves to adjust the controls with bare fingers. The metal bit into his skin, cold and unforgiving. He didn't notice. Didn't care. "You ready?" he muttered. Atlas didn't move. Ryan ignited the torch. The flame burst to life with a sharp hiss, blue-white against the darkness. It cast long, flickering shadows across the compartment, turning the still space into something alone. Ryan brought the flame to the seam. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the steel began to glow. A dull red at first, then brighter as the heat took hold. Sparks spilled downward, scattering across the floor like burning snow. Atlas didn't flinch, didn't step back. He stayed right there, guarding. Ryan moved the torch slowly along the seam, cutting with precision, not rushing, not forcing it. Controlled, always controlled. The sound filled the compartment, metal hissing, popping, resisting. But it gave. Bit by bit, the smell of heated steel thickened the air, mixing with the dry, stale scent of the submarine's interior. Ryan's breathing stayed steady. In, out. Focus on the line. Ignore everything else. A sudden shift. A loud crack. The panel buckled slightly inward. Ryan pulled the torch away, stepping back. The metal groaned. Then, with a heavy, hollow clang, the section dropped. A cloud of dust burst outward, filling the air, choking, thick, ancient. Ryan turned his head, coughing once, then waved it away. Atlas stepped forward immediately. Too fast. Atlas, wait. But the dog didn't stop. He moved straight into the opening. Ryan's pulse spiked. He grabbed the flashlight and followed. The space beyond was narrow, tighter than expected. Barely enough room to stand fully upright. The air was different here. Stale in a way that didn't belong to abandonment. It smelled sealed, preserved. Ryan swept the flashlight across the interior. Metal walls. No corrosion. No decay. Everything inside had been protected. Carefully. Intentionally. Then the light hit something. Crates. Stacked along the far side. Wood reinforced with steel edges. Markings faint but still visible beneath time. Ryan stepped closer. Atlas was already there, standing in front of the crates, completely still. Not tense, not aggressive, just aware. Ryan crouched, brushing dust from the nearest crate. Letters appeared. Faded, but readable. Not English. He frowned. "German," he murmured. His stomach tightened. He moved the light again. More crates. More markings. Some with symbols he recognized. Others he didn't. Then something else. A metal case bolted to the floor. Ryan approached slowly. Every instinct he had was firing now. This wasn't random. This wasn't just hidden storage. This was placed, secured, protected. Atlas stepped back slightly, giving him space. Ryan knelt in front of the case, ran his fingers along the edges. Cold. Solid. He found the latch. hesitated. Just for a second. Then he opened it. Inside, gold. Not bars. Not at first. Smaller pieces. Coins. Jewelry. Chains. Objects worn smooth by time but unmistakable. Ryan stared. The light reflected off the metal, flickering across the walls. His breath slowed, then stopped. He lifted one piece carefully. A necklace. Delicate. Out of place in a space like this. His hand tightened slightly. This didn't belong here. None of it did. He set it back down slowly. Then he noticed something beneath it. Paper. Protected. Sealed. He pulled it free. Unfolded it carefully. Photographs. Black and white. Men in uniforms. American. Standing beside crates. These crates. Younger. Different time. Different place. Ryan's chest tightened. This wasn't lost, he said quietly. Atlas watched him. Ryan looked around the compartment again. The crates. The case. The documents. All of it hidden behind steel. All of it preserved. Not forgotten. Buried. On purpose. His jaw clenched. They knew, he whispered. A low sound came from Atlas. Not a growl, something else. Ryan looked at him. The dog wasn't focused on the crates anymore. He was looking back toward the opening. Ryan turned. Listened. For a moment, nothing. Then, a faint sound. Metal. Above them. Movement. Ryan's pulse spiked instantly. They're back, he said. Atlas stepped forward, positioning himself between Ryan and the entrance. The storm outside roared louder now, masking sound, but not enough. Another shift. Closer this time. Ryan grabbed the flashlight, shutting it off. Darkness swallowed the compartment again. He stood still, listening. Every sense locked in. The space they had just opened, the secret that had been buried for 70 years, was no longer hidden. And whoever had been watching knew it. And whoever had been watching knew it. Ryan didn't move. Not a step. Not a breath louder than necessary. The darkness inside the hidden compartment pressed in around him, thick and absolute. Only the faint outline of Atlas remained visible, a solid shape between him and the opening, unmoving, unafraid. Another sound above. Closer. A slow shift of weight across metal. Not searching. Confirming. Ryan's mind worked fast. Distance to the hatch. Angles of entry. Limited cover. Too tight for a fight. He leaned down slightly, his hand brushing Atlas's shoulder. Just enough. The dog understood instantly. Hold. No sound. Ryan waited. 3 seconds. 5. 10. The footsteps stopped. Then nothing. No retreat. No entry. Just silence again. Long enough to be intentional. Ryan exhaled slowly through his nose. They're listening, he whispered. Atlas didn't move. Ryan crouched again, reaching for the documents he had pulled from the case. If they came down, if they pushed inside, he needed something to take with him. Something that mattered. He slid the photographs into his jacket, then grabbed a thin leather folder from the crate beside him. It was stiff from age, edges worn but intact. He opened it carefully. Inside, pages. Typed, stamped, marked English. Ryan's eyes scanned the first line. Operation log. Classified transfer unit. His pulse slowed. Not fear. Focus. He flipped the page. Coordinates. Dates. Shipping records. And then a name. Recovered vessel U-461. Ryan froze. The letters sat on the page like they had been waiting for him. Behind him, Atlas shifted slightly. Ryan didn't look up. German U-boat, he murmured. His voice was barely audible. He turned another page. Photographs. Grainy, black and white. A submarine, not this one, different, smaller, partially submerged, men standing beside it. American uniforms, post-war. One of them had a crate open at his feet. Inside, gold bars, clear, unmistakable. Ryan felt something tighten deep in his chest. This wasn't salvage, he whispered. This was extraction. Another page. Handwritten notes this time. Less controlled, less official. One line underlined twice. Cargo secured. Orders received to redirect assets. No return authorization issued. Ryan's jaw clenched. Redirect, not return. He flipped again. More entries. More coordinates. All leading back to one thing. Movement. Transfer secrecy. Then, a final note. Different handwriting. Less steady. This isn't recovery. This is removal. If this stays buried, it stays stolen. Ryan stared at the words. Something shifted inside him. Not anger. Not yet, something heavier. Atlas let out a low breath. Ryan looked up. The dog's posture had changed. Not defensive, not aggressive. Alert, but calm. Listening. Ryan followed his gaze. Still no movement. Still no sound. But the tension, still there, still close. Ryan closed the folder slowly. Then he looked around the compartment again. The crates, the artifacts, the documents. Everything hidden, everything preserved. Not to protect it, to keep it unseen. His voice came out low. They didn't lose this, he said. They took it. Atlas's ears twitched. Ryan slid the folder into his jacket, securing it tight. Then he reached for one of the smaller items in the case. A ring, simple, gold, worn smooth. He held it for a moment, then set it back. Not his. None of it was. That mattered now. More than anything. A faint vibration broke the silence. Ryan's hand went to his pocket instantly. Phone. He hesitated, then pulled it out. Screen lit the darkness just enough to cast a pale glow across the compartment. Another message. Unknown number. He opened it. You've seen enough. Ryan stared at it. No emotion on his face, just stillness. Then, another message. Walk away. This ends quietly. Atlas shifted again. Not reacting to the phone, reacting to something else. Ryan looked up. The air felt different. Not just tension, movement. Subtle. Above. Ryan slipped the phone back into his pocket. His voice was calm now. Steady. They're still here. Atlas stepped forward, closer to the opening again. Protective. Ready. Ryan stood slowly. Every movement controlled. No sudden shifts, no noise. He took one last look at the compartment, at the crates, at the history buried behind steel. 70 years of silence. And now, exposed. He turned. Time to move, he whispered. Atlas didn't wait. He stepped out first, clearing the narrow passage with quiet precision. Ryan followed. They moved through the engine compartment without light, relying on memory, on instinct. Up the corridor, toward the hatch. The wind outside roared louder now, filling the silence with chaos. Masking sound. Helping them. Ryan climbed first, pulling himself up and out into the storm. Atlas followed in one smooth motion. The marina was empty. But it didn't feel empty. Ryan scanned quickly. Left. Right. Nothing visible. But the feeling remained. Eyes. Somewhere. Watching. He dropped down from the hull, boots hitting the snow with a soft thud. Atlas landed beside him. Ryan didn't look back at the submarine. Not yet. He just started walking. Fast. Controlled. Toward the truck. Atlas stayed tight at his side. Halfway there, Ryan stopped. Something pulled at him. He turned. Just once. The submarine stood in the storm, snow sweeping across its surface, covering the marks, the entry, the evidence. But it couldn't cover what had already been uncovered. Ryan's eyes hardened slightly. They hid it, he said quietly. Atlas looked up at him. Ryan shook his head once. Not anymore. He turned back toward the truck. This wasn't just a secret. This wasn't just history. This was something taken. Something buried. Something that had never been returned. And now, it had been found. Which meant, it was going to matter. Whether anyone wanted it to or not, it was going to matter. Whether anyone wanted it to or not. The storm broke just before dawn. Snow gave way to a hard, cutting wind that stripped the sky clean, leaving Pine Hollow exposed beneath a pale, colorless morning. The lake stretched out like glass, the marina silent again, but now the silence felt thin. Temporary. Ryan didn't return to the submarine right away. He stayed in town. Watched. Waited. Atlas stayed with him, closer than usual now, his attention sharper, movements tighter. The easy rhythm they had before, if it had ever been easy, was gone. Now there was only purpose. Ryan sat outside Marlowe's diner, a cup of coffee cooling in his hands, eyes fixed on the street. People moved as they always did, slow, quiet, keeping to themselves. But Ryan wasn't watching them. He was watching everything else. Reflections in windows, engines that stayed running too long, doors that opened just a second too late. Atlas noticed it too. A black SUV rolled into view from the far end of the street. Clean. Out of place. It didn't slow. It didn't hesitate. It stopped directly across from the diner. Engine still running. Ryan didn't move. Atlas's posture shifted, subtle, controlled. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Mid-50s, clean coat. No rush in his movement. The kind of calm that didn't come from comfort. It came from control. He crossed the street without looking around. Without needing to. Ryan set the coffee down. Atlas rose slowly, positioning himself at Ryan's side. The man stopped a few feet away. "Mr. Walker," he said. Not a question. Ryan looked up at him. "Depends who's asking." The man gave a faint, polite smile. "Victor Hale." He extended a hand. Ryan didn't take it. Victor didn't seem surprised. He lowered his hand calmly. "I represent a private firm tasked with managing sensitive acquisitions," he said. Ryan leaned back slightly in his chair. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Victor's expression didn't change. "We're calling it necessary," he replied. A pause. Wind moved lightly through the street, carrying the faint smell of snow and diesel. Victor glanced down at Atlas. The dog stood still, eyes locked. Victor nodded once. "Impressive animal," he said. Ryan didn't respond. Victor looked back at him. "You found something," he said simply. Ryan held his gaze. "Did I?" Victor stepped closer, just enough to lower his voice. "You opened a compartment that was sealed for a reason," he said. "Not aggressive, not threatening, just certain." Ryan felt that steady pressure again. But this time, he didn't ignore it. "What do you want?" Ryan asked. Victor reached into his coat. Slow, deliberate. Atlas shifted slightly, muscles tightening. Victor stopped just enough to acknowledge the movement, then continued. He pulled out an envelope. Plain. White. He placed it on the table. "Inside is a certified check," he said. $50,000. Ryan didn't look at it. Victor continued. "Along with documentation that clears your name for any outstanding issues tied to your service record, housing assistance, medical support, a clean start." Ryan's jaw tightened slightly. Victor's voice remained calm. "All you have to do is walk away." Silence stretched between them, the kind that carried weight. Ryan finally glanced down at the envelope, then back at Victor. "And the submarine?" he asked. Victor tilted his head slightly. "That will be handled," he said. "Handled," Ryan repeated. Victor nodded. "Secured, contained, returned to its proper classification." Ryan let out a quiet breath. "There's nothing proper about what's in there," he said. Victor's eyes didn't shift. That depends on perspective. Ryan leaned forward slightly now. No, he said. It doesn't. A beat. Victor studied him. Then his tone changed. Slightly. Still calm. But colder. You've seen enough to understand that this situation extends beyond your control, he said. What's inside that vessel isn't something you can fix with a wrench or a torch. Ryan didn't flinch. Victor continued. You're being offered a way out, he said. A good one. Ryan looked at Atlas. The dog met his gaze. Steady, unmoving. Ryan turned back to Victor. And if I don't take it? He asked. Victor's smile faded just a fraction. Then things become complicated, he said. How? Victor didn't answer right away. He reached into his coat again, this time pulling out a small folder. He set it on the table beside the envelope. Ryan looked at it. Didn't touch it. Victor tapped it lightly. Your service record, he said. Unresolved incidents, incomplete reports, psychological evaluations. Ryan's expression stayed still, but something behind his eyes hardened. Victor leaned in slightly. It doesn't take much to shift perception, he said quietly. A few reports, a few statements. Suddenly, you're not a veteran who found something important. He paused. You're a man with a history of instability, making claims no one can verify. Ryan's hand tightened slightly on the table. Victor straightened again. I don't say this as a threat, he said. I say it as a reality. Atlas stepped forward. Just one step. Positioning himself between Ryan and Victor. Silent. Unyielding. Victor glanced down at the dog, then back at Ryan. Loyal, he said. Ryan's voice came out low. More than most. Another pause. The wind shifted again, rattling the diner windows behind them. Victor looked at the envelope one last time. 50,000, he said. No questions, no consequences. Ryan stared at it. Long enough for the moment to matter. Then, he reached forward, not for the envelope, for the folder. He opened it, flipped through it once, closed it, set it back down. Then he looked at Victor. You ever been in a place where things go quiet before something bad happens? Ryan asked. Victor didn't answer. Ryan continued. That moment where everything feels wrong, but you can't explain why. A beat. That's where you are right now, Ryan said. Victor held his gaze. Unmoved. Ryan pushed the envelope back across the table. Slow, deliberate. Take it, he said. Victor didn't reach for it. Ryan leaned back. I'm not walking away, he said. Silence. Heavy. Final. Victor studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded once. A small, almost respectful gesture. Very well, he said. He picked up the envelope, slipped it back into his coat. Then he turned to leave. But before he stepped away, he paused. Without looking back, he spoke. You've already crossed the line, Mr. Walker, he said. A beat. There's no safe way back. Then he walked away. The SUV door closed, the engine revved, and within seconds, the vehicle was gone. Ryan sat there, unmoving. Atlas stayed beside him still, watching. After a long moment, Ryan exhaled slowly. "Yeah," he said under his breath. "I know." He looked toward the direction of the marina, toward the submarine, toward what was hidden behind steel. And now, what was no longer hidden at all. And now, what was no longer hidden at all. The light over Pine Hollow dimmed early that day. Clouds rolled back in without warning, turning the sky into a flat sheet of gray that swallowed the mountains whole. The wind picked up again, colder this time, sharper, carrying the promise of another long night. Ryan didn't wait for it. By late afternoon, he was already back at the marina. Atlas stayed tight at his side, closer than before. Ryan could feel it. The shift. The air didn't just feel watched anymore. It felt occupied. He slowed near the edge of the docks, scanning the area before stepping out into the open. The submarine stood where it always had, silent, heavy, unmoving. But something was different. The hatch. It was open wider than he had left it. Ryan stopped. Atlas froze. Every muscle in the dog's body went still, ears forward, eyes locked. Ryan's voice dropped to a whisper. They came back. Atlas didn't move. Ryan stepped forward slowly, boots quiet against the frozen ground. His eyes moved constantly, dock lines, support beams, shadows between structures. No movement, no voices. But the feeling, still there. He climbed the support frame again, more controlled than ever. Atlas followed. Inside, the air felt wrong, not just stale, disturbed. Ryan dropped into the corridor, flashlight already in hand, but he didn't turn it on. Not yet. He listened. Silence. Then, a faint shift. Behind him. Ryan spun. Too late. A shadow moved at the far end of the corridor. Fast. Controlled. Not panicked. Atlas lunged forward instantly, a sharp bark cutting through the darkness. "Stop!" Ryan snapped, but the command wasn't for Atlas. The figure didn't stop. Ryan flicked the flashlight on. The beam caught movement, black clothing, face partially covered, already turning away. Not alone. Another shape moved behind him. Two. Ryan's body reacted on instinct. He moved forward, closing distance, positioning himself between them and the engine compartment. "Back off," he said, voice low but firm. The figures didn't speak. They didn't need to. They shifted, one stepping left, the other right. Trying to flank. Atlas moved with them, adjusting instantly, blocking the angle. A low growl rolled from his chest. Warning. Clear. Ryan stepped forward again. "You've seen enough," he said. Still no response. One of them moved. Fast. Ryan reacted. He stepped in, deflecting the movement, forcing space. The corridor was too tight for anything else. Too confined. Too close. The second figure lunged. Atlas intercepted. The impact was immediate, a sharp collision of force and motion, a struggle, controlled but real. Ryan moved to assist, but the first figure recovered faster than expected. A hard push, a sudden shift. Ryan hit the wall, breath knocked from his chest. For a split second, the world blurred, sound dropped out. Then, a sharp yelp. Ryan's head snapped up. Atlas. The dog staggered back a step. One front leg lifted slightly. Blood. Ryan's chest tightened instantly. Atlas. The name came out sharper than anything before. The figures hesitated, just for a moment. Then, they moved. Retreat. Fast. Efficient. Gone. Ryan didn't chase. He didn't move. Not toward them. He dropped to one knee beside Atlas. Hey. Hey. Stay with me, he said, voice low, controlled but tight underneath. Atlas stood, barely. His leg trembled slightly, but he didn't fall. Didn't retreat. Didn't break. Ryan's hands moved quickly, checking the wound. Not deep, but enough. Enough to matter. All right, Ryan whispered. You're all right. Atlas looked at him. Not in pain. Not in fear. Just present. Ryan swallowed hard. For a moment, the submarine disappeared. The marina disappeared. The cold disappeared. All he saw was another place, another moment, another body on the ground, another loss. His breathing hitched. The edges of his vision tightened. Sound faded. Atlas moved, even injured. He stepped forward and pressed into Ryan again, grounding, anchoring. The same way he always had, Ryan blinked. Hard. The world snapped back. The submarine, the corridor, the cold, the blood. He exhaled sharply. I'm here, he said, more to himself than the dog. Atlas didn't move. Ryan steadied his hands, pulling a cloth from his jacket and wrapping the leg carefully. Hold still, he murmured. The dog obeyed. Always. Ryan finished the wrap, tightening it just enough to stop the bleeding. Then he sat back slightly. For a moment, neither of them moved. Just breathing. Together. Ryan's voice came out low. You should have stayed back. Atlas didn't respond. Didn't need to. Ryan shook his head once. No, he said quietly. You don't do that. He reached out, resting his hand against the dog's neck. Atlas leaned into it. Just slightly. Ryan looked down the corridor. Empty now, but not safe. Not anymore. They're not here to watch, he said. They're here to take it back. Atlas's ears shifted. Ryan nodded once. Yeah, he said. I know. He stood slowly, helping Atlas adjust. You can walk? He asked. The dog tested his weight, then nodded in his own way. Steady. Ryan exhaled. Good. He looked once more toward the engine compartment. toward the hidden space, toward everything inside it. Then he turned away. "Not like this," he said. They moved back toward the hatch together. Slower now, but still moving. Still together. Because whatever this had become, it wasn't just about the truth anymore. It wasn't just about what had been hidden. It was about what it was costing. And Ryan knew he couldn't lose again. Not this time. Not him. Not this time. Not him. Ryan didn't wait for nightfall. He didn't wait for the storm. He didn't wait for them to come back. By the time the last light slipped behind the mountains, he was already moving. The truck engine roared to life, louder than usual in the quiet of Pine Hollow. Atlas lay stretched across the passenger seat, leg wrapped, breathing steady but alert. He hadn't complained, hadn't pulled away, just stayed close, eyes tracking everything. Ryan glanced at him once. "You're staying with me," he said quietly. Atlas didn't blink. Ryan nodded. "Yeah," he added. "I figured." The lights inside Marlowe's diner were still on. Ryan pushed through the door without hesitation this time. The warmth hit him, but he barely noticed it. His focus was fixed. Claire was already there. Same booth, same calm posture. But when she saw Ryan, saw the blood on his sleeve, the wrap on Atlas's leg, her expression changed instantly. "What happened?" she asked, standing up. Ryan didn't sit. "They came inside," he said. Claire's eyes sharpened. "Inside the submarine?" Ryan nodded once. "Two of them. Trained." Claire exhaled slowly. "Then we're out of time." Ryan stepped closer. "I found what's behind the wall," he said. That stopped her. Completely. "What?" she asked. Ryan pulled the folder from his jacket and set it on the table. "Not salvage," he said. "Transfer. Post-war." Claire opened it carefully, flipping through the pages. Her breath caught. These are real," she whispered. "Operation logs, transport records." She turned another page, then another. Her expression shifted from focus to disbelief. "No," she said under her breath. "They didn't." Ryan watched her. "They did," he said. Claire looked up. 461, she said. "That submarine was never officially recovered. It was listed as lost." Ryan nodded. "It wasn't lost," he said. "It was found and stripped." Claire's hands trembled slightly as she held the pages. "This is proof," she said. "They recovered Nazi transport cargo and never reported it." Ryan leaned forward. "They kept it," he said. Claire looked back down at the photos. The crates, the gold, the officers. Her voice dropped. "This isn't just a hidden operation," she said. "This is a cover-up." Ryan didn't respond. He didn't need to. Claire closed the folder slowly. "They're not going to let this come out," she said. Ryan nodded. "I know." Silence. Then, Claire looked at Atlas. The dog met her gaze. Steady. Present. "What happened to him?" she asked softly. Ryan glanced down. "He stepped in," he said. Claire's eyes softened slightly. "Of course he did. Ryan exhaled. They're not bluffing, he said. They're already moving. Claire nodded. Then we move first. Ryan looked at her. How? Claire stood. We don't fight them, she said. We expose them. Ryan's expression didn't change. Claire continued. Once this goes public, they lose control, she said. They can't bury it if everyone sees it. Ryan considered that, then nodded once. All right. An hour later, they were back in Ryan's truck. Parked behind the diner. Engine running. Laptop open on the dashboard. Claire worked quickly, fingers moving across the keyboard, scanning, uploading, organizing. Photos first, she said, then documents. Ryan handed her the folder. She connected a small external drive, copying everything piece by piece. Atlas remained still, watching the street through the window. Every passing light, every shadow, every movement. Ryan's eyes moved between Claire and the outside world. How long? He asked. 10 minutes, she said. Maybe less. Ryan nodded. He checked his phone. No new messages. That didn't mean anything. Claire's voice cut through again. I have a contact, she said. Investigative journalist. If we send this directly, it goes live fast. Ryan looked at her. Do it. Claire hesitated for just a second, then nodded. All right. She hit send. Files uploaded, data transferred, evidence released. The moment passed quietly. No sound, no signal. But something changed. Ryan felt it, like a line had been crossed again. But this time, on his terms. Claire leaned back slightly. It's out, she said. Ryan exhaled slowly. Good. The first call came 5 minutes later. Claire's phone rang. Unknown number. She didn't answer. Then another. Ryan's phone vibrated. Same. Ignored. Then, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then went out completely. The diner dropped into darkness. Claire froze. They're cutting power, she said. Ryan was already moving. Grab everything, he said. Atlas was on his feet instantly. Claire packed the drive, the laptop, the folder, everything they had left. Ryan moved to the back door. Now, he said. They stepped out into the cold alley behind the diner. Wind hit them hard. Snow started falling again. Fast. Ryan scanned the area. Empty. For now. Atlas stepped forward, leading slightly this time. Guiding. Ryan followed. Claire right behind him. They moved quickly down the alley, boots crunching against the frozen ground. No talking, no hesitation, just movement. At the end of the alley, Ryan stopped, looked back once. The diner sat in darkness. Still, quiet, but not safe. He turned forward again. Keep going, he said. Atlas moved. Ryan followed. Because now, it wasn't just about what they had found. It was about what they had released. And once the truth was out, it couldn't be taken back. And once the truth was out, it couldn't be taken back. The storm passed overnight. Morning came clear and sharp, the kind of cold that made every sound travel farther than it should. Pine Hollow woke to something it hadn't felt in a long time. Movement. Phones rang. Doors opened. Voices carried across the quiet streets. Ryan stood at the edge of the marina, watching it all from a distance. He hadn't slept. Didn't need to. Atlas sat beside him, legs still wrapped, posture steady despite the injury. The dog's eyes moved constantly, scanning, tracking, processing every shift in the environment. But for the first time since this had started, there was no immediate threat. Just attention. Ryan's phone vibrated again. He glanced at it. Dozens of messages, calls, unknown numbers, news outlets, names he didn't recognize. He didn't answer, not yet. Claire approached from behind, her boots crunching softly on the frost-covered ground. "It's everywhere," she said. Ryan didn't turn. "How bad?" he asked. Claire let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "Bad for them," she said. "Not for you." Ryan finally looked at her. Claire held up her phone. Images flashed across the screen. The submarine, the compartment, the crates, the documents. Headlines forming in real time. Hidden World War II. Operation exposed. Recovered Nazi assets never returned. Veteran uncovers long-buried government secret. Ryan stared at it for a moment, then looked back at the marina. "They'll try to shut it down," he said. Claire nodded. "They already are," she said, "but it's too late." A beat. "Once it spreads this far," she added, "they can't pull it back without drawing more attention." Ryan exhaled slowly. Good. By midday, the marina was no longer empty. Black vehicles lined the road leading in. Officials, investigators, people in heavy coats with badges clipped to their belts and radios at their shoulders. They moved with purpose. Not secrecy. Not anymore. Tape went up around the submarine. Barriers were placed, photographs taken, measurements recorded. Voices carried across the cold air, urgent, focused, no longer quiet. Ryan stood just outside the perimeter. Atlas remained beside him, still, watching everything. A man approached, different from the others, less rigid, more direct. "Ryan Walker?" he asked. Ryan nodded once. The man extended a hand. "Federal investigator," he said. "We need to talk." Ryan looked at the hand, then at the man, then shook it. Brief. Controlled. "Go ahead," Ryan said. The investigator glanced toward the submarine. "You're the one who found it?" he asked. Ryan nodded and released the material. Ryan didn't hesitate. "Yes." The man studied him for a second, then nodded slowly. "You understand what this means," he said. Ryan looked back at the submarine. "Yeah," he said. The investigator followed his gaze. "This is going to take time," he said. "A lot of it. Verification, recovery, identification of assets." Ryan didn't respond. The man continued. "But if what you've uncovered holds..." He paused slightly, choosing his words carefully, Then there are people out there who've been waiting a long time for answers. Ryan's jaw tightened slightly. Then they should get them, he said. The investigator nodded. That's the plan. He hesitated, then added quietly, You did the right thing. Ryan didn't answer. Because for him, it had never been about being right. Days passed, then weeks. Pine Hollow changed. Not all at once, but enough. The marina stayed active. Teams came and went. Crates were removed carefully, documented, catalogued. Historians arrived, officials from other countries. Families, people who had spent years searching for something they never thought they'd see again. Ryan stayed at the edge of it, not involved, not removed, just present. Atlas healed slowly. The wound closed. The limp faded. But the scar remained. Ryan noticed it every time the dog moved. And every time, he remembered. One morning, weeks later, Ryan returned to the marina alone. No tape, no crowd, just quiet again. The submarine remained, but it felt different now. Not hidden, not buried. Seen. Ryan walked up to it slowly. Atlas followed. They climbed the support frame together. The hatch stood open. Ryan didn't go inside. He didn't need to. He reached into his jacket and pulled something out. A small patch. Faded. Worn. His unit insignia. He held it for a moment, then placed it gently against the cold steel of the hull. For a second, his hand stayed there. Resting. Steady. We didn't fix the machine, he said quietly. Atlas sat beside him, listening. Ryan exhaled, then finished the thought. We fixed what they tried to erase. The wind moved softly across the marina. Not harsh, not cutting, just present. Ryan stepped back, looked at the submarine one last time, then turned away. Atlas stood, fell into step beside him. And as they walked back toward the truck, the silence that followed them didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. It felt earned. If you believe the truth is worth standing for, no matter the cost, type yes in the comments, or 0 if you think it's safer to walk away. Stories like this remind us that dignity isn't given, it's protected, sometimes by the ones no one sees. And if that means something to you, consider subscribing. There's more real stories like this waiting.